Hello and thanks for joining us here on France 24 for France in Focus. This week we're looking at the issue of immigration, a top news story right across Europe. This is conflict, persecution and economic circumstances send millions of people fleeing in search of a better life. Already this year there's been a five-fold increase in the number of people making the perilous journey across the Mediterranean. And from there on to France and other parts of the continent. Well, coming up in this programme, a brief lesson in history. We see how centuries of immigration have made France the country that it is today. Living in limbo for those using France as a stepping stone to the UK, the final 30-kilometre stretch may be the most challenging. And improving the system, the French Parliament debates how to change certain immigration procedures. Over the course of the past 2 centuries, France has experienced various key phases of immigration. And today, roughly 1/4 of the French population is descended from French parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. Well, here at the Museum of the History of Immigration in Paris, that journey is documented with photos, documents, and various works of art. Well, you can look back at those phases throughout the course of the decades here. But this next report gives us a little history lesson.
France, land of immigration, and it's not a new phenomenon. Arrivals from all 4 corners of the globe have contributed to the population over the centuries, making a historical mix that does away with the old cliché of the ancestral Gauls in France, popular at the end of the 19th century. But where do these immigrants come from? Until the 20th century, they were mainly from Europe. Germans, Belgians, English and Czech, among others. Most were looking for work or to flee repressive political regimes. Everything changed at the end of the Second World War with the process of decolonization.
Since France was a colonial power, many migrants came to the French territory from the former colonies. So that was an important influx in the post-war years, even up until now, really. What we see today is more diversity in the origins of the people coming here.
France is now home to immigrants from all parts of Asia, and since the recession, more Portuguese and Spanish people have headed here. Increasing numbers of German and British pensioners also call France their home. All in all, Europeans represent 46% of foreign nationals in France, ahead of immigration from Africa. But how many are there in total? In 2013, 8.8% of the French population were immigrants, compared to just 3% in 1910. Over the last decade, some 200,000 residency permits have been issued every year. The emergence of conflicts like the war in Syria and Libya saw numbers of asylum seekers rising sharply. France accepts some 65,000 of those refugees a year, putting them 4th behind Germany, Sweden and Italy as a host country. So who are they? Contrary to popular belief, many immigrants come for professional or educational reasons. 60,000 of them are students who do not plan to stay on in the country, and 20,000 come to France for work.
The level of education of those arriving in France is on the rise. The National Office for Statistics says about 38% of them have university degrees, which is more than the French average. Well, it's close, but it's a little more than the percentage of French graduates. And it's not always the Europeans who have the most qualifications among the immigrants. For example, there are more and more university-educated people coming from North Africa and Asia too.
Questions have been raised about the cost of immigration, but in fact it generates money. The French state paid out less to immigrants in 2009 than it eventually recouped in tax.
Temporary camps, such as this one at the Alpajol in the north of Paris, have sprung up in many areas of France, although it usually isn't long before the authorities come in, dismantle the camps and move the residents on. Well, thousands of people are also camped out in the port city of Calais, where they wait for just the right moment to cross the channel. But for many living in unsanitary conditions and with few NGOs on hand to help, these final 30 kilometres of their journey can feel like the longest.
The road to Britain is clearly visible behind the barbed wire and metal gates. Alongside the highway, a wall is going up. When it's finished, the UK's secure zone will protect 230 trucks bound for Dover. Those looking to jump onto the trucks live in this informal camp, also known as the jungle. Over 3,000 migrants are now camped out here in tents and other makeshift structures. This man arrived a few weeks ago and explains the camp's geography.
Yes, yes. Most of in this area, Eritreans coming for 4 or 5 days.
A sense of normalcy is developing. Shops have opened to cater to daily needs, and there's even a church being built out of pallets and tarp. Yet no one intends to stay for long. Their end goal remains across the channel.
You know, my family, there is no income money. That's why all coming there.
Every day is spent walking kilometers to the port, where trucks stand in traffic like sitting ducks. If they can pry open the doors, the migrants conceal themselves among the goods. Otherwise, they hide underneath the body and between the wheels, risking injury or worse. French police check every vehicle before it leaves for Britain. This truck has 3 men hidden inside. A bit further down the road, a driver has found another stowaway. They're fearless, he says, as the young woman retreats to try another day.
Every day I try, no chance. They no give chance.
Migrants complain about police brutality when pulling them from trucks, continuous futile arrests, and violent camp breakups. Police, on the other hand, say they are overwhelmed by the number attempting to cross.
Today we have approximately at least 350 police officers. It's completely disproportionate to the 4,000 migrants who are currently present in the Calais area and coastline.
The jungle camp has no water or sanitation. Those can be found here at this day centre, which was built to cater to 1,500 migrants. Not enough by far. NGOs predict that by the end of the summer, the number of migrants will have doubled.
The numbers just keep on rising, and there are growing calls for the government to step in and offer proper facilities for people who are otherwise camped out on the street here in the north of Paris. Well, we're going to take you now to see some facilities which people would like to see more of. They're generating plenty of discussion amongst people who live in that area near the French city of Dijon.
A little hamlet in Bourgogne, Pouilly-en-Auxois, is a quintessentially French village. Since January, it's been home to a processing centre where 60 migrants are staying. Changing the face of the local population, opinions are divided.
It doesn't bother me, but it's a bit unfair. There are plenty of people who can hardly survive here in the countryside, and then we see that next door? It's disgusting. There's no other word for it.
The migrants are housed in a former police barracks, which is administered by the government. Many of them come to the village to do their shopping a few kilometres away.
Since they've been here, it's been fine. There are no problems, really. We say hello. We're starting to get to know each other.
All of those staying in Pouilly have asked for asylum, like Yassine, who fled Darfur for his own safety. His status means he can't work in France. He receives 11 euros per day from the state for meals. The 23-year-old was transferred to Pouilly from Calais 3 months ago.
Like many of us, I took a boat from Italy before I got to France. I'm just looking for a peaceful life.
Learning French is a key skill to help the migrants integrate. These 2 retired school teachers give them lessons for free. Do you understand people in the village who say they shouldn't have opened a processing centre here?
These are human beings. They're the same age as my children, you know.
The local mayor didn't ask for the centre to be created in his constituency. The decision came from Paris. Nevertheless, he bears the brunt of the criticism.
They say I'm an old idiot, I'm a dirty lefty, I'm stupid.
But did you have the choice?
Not at all. I'll be very frank with you. When they told me the processing center was going to be here in Pouilly, without knowing the details of the accommodation, I was very reticent.
6 months on, tensions have diminished somewhat. For the migrants, it's just the beginning of a long wait. It'll be weeks or even months before they know if their requests for asylum have been granted.
Non-EU nationals must carry a residency permit here in France, which they have to renew every year. But the French Parliament is currently discussing various ways in which immigration procedures could be improved, in some cases made less time-consuming and less frustrating for all concerned. Let's have a little look now and see what's being discussed.
Endless queuing and hours waiting at the police administrative office. It's the same old laborious process when it comes to renewing a residency permit. Gina's been living in France for 6 years. This Egyptian engineer's renewing her permit for the 5th time.
I had to take a day off to come and do the paperwork, and given that one visit's never enough, we have to come various times. It's such a waste of time.
It's a bureaucratic obstacle course that the government's hoping to do away with, a move that would facilitate the lives of some 700,000 foreigners living in France. A proposed bill suggests that residency permits should last several years after the first permit's issued. The subsequent renewals could cover 2 to 4 years. The draft law is hoping to attract certain immigrant profiles, scientists, athletes, or artists, an initiative that seeks to bring talent to France from abroad. A selective immigration drive that would grant a 4-year visa to a potential 10,000 temporary residents. An additional government measure seeks to combat fraud. It would mean personal data of foreign residents in France would be accessible, including some sensitive information. Human rights groups say that is not acceptable.
This would promote a general, institutional suspicion of foreign people.
Another feature of the law could see illegal immigrants kept under house arrest, as opposed to a detention center, while their case is being processed.
That's it for this week's edition of France in Focus. Thank you very much for joining us for this edition on the subject of immigration. Do stay tuned to France 24.